I don't see everybody with audio yet.
No. Tom, unmute. Katie, can you hear us?
Her mic isn't showing.
Joe or Tom, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just was getting settled.
Okay. Well, it looks like we do have a quorum right at the last minute. We got a quorum in the last 2 minutes. Before we start the meeting, we have to wait for Katie to get on because we don't have a quorum without her. And it looks like she's on, but she's not showing. Anyways, somebody gonna have to act as chair because Johanna's not coming. Volunteers? No volunteers. So should we nominate Katie since she's not on?
Military volunteering?
Yeah, volunteer her? Okay. As soon as she comes on then. See, last one on, you get volunteered for things.
You don't have a vice chair?
I'll second
No.
the nomination of Katie.
Okay, it was Laura who was the vice chair before.
I thought it just went by seniority, to be honest with you. That's why I
No.
was keeping quiet because I'm the newest.
Yeah. All right, well, we can't start until Katie does join us. Otherwise, we don't have a quorum, so. Yes. Oh, hold on. Tom, are you here? No, he disappeared.
So I thought I saw him at one point.
I did too, and he
thought I saw him
disappeared.
too.
He must be having troubles. So either if Tom or Katie comes on, then if Tom comes on, who are we nominating him as acting chair?
I'll
Yeah.
certainly do it if none of those guys want to do it. I just might need a little coaching on what to do.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello, who is this?
Hi, it's Katie. I'm having a terrible time with Zoom.
Okay,
Hold on. I'm going to hang up the phone, but I'm here, so hold on just 1 second.
okay.
I see Tom's back on again now as well.
Yes. Tom, can you hear us? Looks like he's having troubles too.
Yep. That was on my end. That wasn't you. I got kicked off my own router.
Okay, all right. Then if you want to turn on your video, then we'll be ready to go because we have 4.
There we go.
All right. Well, as I mentioned to the few of you that were on a few minutes early, Johanna Slanga is not going to be able to attend tonight. And our previous vice chair, Laura Edwards, is no longer on the board. So first thing we have to do is I will open the meeting and then I will take a nomination for a temporary chair for tonight's meeting. All right, so we'll open the meeting of October 1st of the Multimodal Transportation Board. As I said, first order of business, we need a nomination for a temporary chair to run tonight's meeting.
We're nominating Katie, right?
See, he
I
was
nominate
on long
Katie.
enough to hear that nomination earlier. He was just sneakily in the background.
That's how I roll.
Well, we can't nominate Katie yet because she's not officially on yet. So
I think that's exactly when you nominate her.
Well, you missed
I'll
the bit
accept
when
the
we nominated
nomination.
you because you were missing.
Doug just accepted, so I think we have one.
okay, hold on. I think Katie's coming in now.
Oh, the suspense.
Katie, can you hear us?
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to close my computer because it's totally misbehaving.
All right. Well, we had a nomination for you to act as chair for this evening's meeting.
Well, I did hear all of that actually. So I could hear all of you, but I could not. My Zoom was like just not working. My only contention with that is there is an agenda item tonight that I will have to recuse myself from due to a conflict. So I don't know if I am the best person to take on that role this evening.
I'm willing.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to nominate Doug. He said he'd be willing to do it.
I would be willing.
I'll second that.
Okay. Laura?
We need a roll call vote for that?
Oh, yes, because it's Zoom.
Okay, sure. We should also do roll call at some point. Josine?
Aye. Well, I
Tom
made the
Beard?
nomination, but
Aye.
Katie Schaefer?
Aye.
Doug White?
Aye.
Andrew Haig?
Present.
Well, that was voting for Doug to be
That was
Oh,
voting for
all right.
Doug.
Well,
So
that was
Doug,
the
you're
roll
now
call.
the
All
chair.
right.
So
Yeah.
take over and start at the beginning, please.
Okay, call the meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. Roll call.
Johanna Slenga? Andrew Haig?
Present.
Tom Peard? Tom Peard? Did he disappear? No, he's there. I'll come back. Katie
He
Schaefer?
appears to be frozen.
Here.
Doug White?
Here.
Josine? Josine?
here.
Okay. And how should I mark Tom?
I think he got booted off again and he's trying. Oh, here we go.
He's there again.
Let's see. Tom Peard, are you here tonight?
He's waving his hands. I
Tom,
feel
you're
like that's
muted.
I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to try and get back onto Zoom, but I remain on the phone for now. So.
Katie, if
Katie.
you turn the volume off on your computer, you can use your phone for the volume and microphone, and then that way you can see what's going on even though we can't see you.
Yeah, the whole thing just was not working. It was just completely malfunctioning. So I turned my computer off and turned it back on. So I will try and at least turn the sound off. So I'll try and stay quiet while that's taking place so we don't get an echo.
Okay, yeah, with the sound off, that'll take care of the echo. So.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any introductions?
We do not.
Okay. Review of the agenda.
There are no changes proposed from what was published.
Okay. And looking for a motion to approve the minutes from September's meeting, please.
I'll motion to approve them.
I would second the motion.
All
Tom
in
Peard?
favor?
Oh, Tom Peard?
Aye.
Katie Schaefer?
Aye.
Doug White?
Aye.
Josine?
Aye.
Andrew Haig?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and our first agenda item is the Southfield and Brown intersection improvements.
Commander Gruery will be handling that one, so I shall give him the floor.
Well, good evening, everybody. Commander Scott Gruery from the Police Department. We have this on the agenda tonight as we were reached out to by the resident of 510 Southfield, John Zesnin. I'm saying that right, Zessin. He's the resident there. His house has been struck a few times from vehicles that were traveling on Brown Street that went through the intersection of Brown and Southfield and ran into his garage. This has happened 4 times over last 10 years, is as far back as I went. Most recent was this past, I believe it was June, it was of this year, where a drunk driver went through the light and struck his garage. He's asked for a review of the intersection for safety of his house there. as well as his family and his vehicles that are in the garage that have been damaged multiple times. We did reach out to Fleiss and Vandenbroek and Julie Kroll to take a look at the intersection. I provided her with the 4 reports that of the damage done to his house, as well as the accident reports that went with those, so that she could be up to date on those. Her report was attached, and I believe she's on with us as well to review her report with us. You there, Julie?
Yes, I am. Good evening. So we did take a look at the intersection. We looked at the signal operations first to determine if the intersection should operate in flash mode. So there is criteria to determine whether flash mode is when the signal operates either in all flashing all red or flashing amber and red on alternating and during the nighttime hours. So you see that occasionally at intersections. So there's criteria that we use to determine whether flash schedules should be implemented. So we evaluated that criteria at this intersection because that was one of the residents' requests, was if this could be implemented to help reduce crashes at this intersection. So we went through the criteria, and it did not meet the criteria for this intersection based on sight distance. Because of the skew of this intersection, there's limited sight distance for this intersection looking to the north. So vehicles would be unable to see oncoming traffic to make a decision in enough time for a safe movement at all times of day. So therefore, that's why the signal is operating 24/7 and does not operate in that flash mode. So that wasn't an option at this location. So we looked at other options, including additional signage at this location to increase awareness for drivers that this is a T intersection and it does not continue through. So we looked at 3 different options: advanced intersection lane control, a 2-direction large arrow sign on the opposite side of the intersection, and then an intersection warning sign in advance of the intersection to show that it is a T intersection that could be added on that with a flashing beacon as well. And through the review with the city and Scott and Austin, and we determined that the best option at this location would be to provide the advanced intersection lane control signage to show that there is only 2 lanes on this approach and you're either left or right, and to provide that 2-direction large arrow sign on the opposite side of the intersection to indicate that to drivers that it is not a through location. Any questions?
Any discussion among the board?
Yeah, I do have a couple of things about this, if I may. Looking at the pictures, and I actually took a bike ride around there last weekend, and I got to say, it does not look very pretty at all with what happened to the gentleman's house. I can definitely understand his concerns. And also looking at the 4 recorded accidents in the period there, just intuitively speaking, signs aren't going to do the job. You've got 2013 drunk driver, 2017 driver appearing to be suffering from a medical condition, 2017 driver struck a tree and fled the scene, so we don't know what their potential impairment was. If they fled, probably were, don't know. 2020 drunk driver. 50% were drunks, 25% was someone with a medical condition. 75% of those issues, they're not going to look at a sign. I find signs to be of limited use because we all start to ignore them after a very short period of time. I can understand why they're looking for a flashing sign. Is there something else that we can do that's more interactive? Because I genuinely don't think if we're looking at impaired drivers as being the primary cause of damage to this particular location, that they're going to pay attention to a road marking, a static sign, something that doesn't catch the eye in an active manner. Is there anything else? Because I feel for this guy, because his house is a mess.
But if I could just add something to follow up to those questions or comments is, you know, one of the things that is troublesome here is much like you just identified, is that of the accidents that we have there, we have medical conditions and drunk drivers. So the question comes down is, would a flashing red light have changed those situations there? And I personally don't believe that it would. I think it's one of those situations where we have a T intersections that dead ends into his house. We have the same set of circumstances at 14 Mile and Greenfield. If you're familiar with that house, they got a giant boulder out front because of similar circumstances that happened there. So one of the things when I did talk with the resident there, his driveway is right at the intersection. So that was something that was, you know, even looked at one point is could we relocate the driveway so that some type of wall or barrier or something like that can be put there? And I know in speaking with Austin that based on the conditions and looking around there really wasn't even an option for that. So there was other things looked at. The large yellow arrow board on the opposite side of the intersection was one that I thought was key because it's a giant beacon that your lights hit in the middle of the night when all these accidents occurred, is to bring awareness to somebody that is a T intersection that does end. As far as any other options, I guess I could let Julie follow up on that if there's anything else.
Yeah, so essentially the recommendations here came out of that we can't really fix drunk drivers or medical conditions. That's not something we can do. We did, like Scott said, look into options of basically eliminating this driveway and consolidating access with other driveways. That wasn't an option. So other options were looked at first before we get to this point. And then the recommendations that we ended up with were really more of an audit of the intersection to see what intersection improvements that could be done to improve safety at the intersection and not necessarily mitigate any of these drunk driving conditions.
Kind of a random question.
I was going to make a funny suggestion that we put the sign on his driveway, so at least they hit the sign instead of his garage. But that's just sort of a joke.
I was actually going to go down a similar pathway. I wonder if there are any permitting issues with having a rolling gate, because there can be structural rolling gates that go parallel to the sidewalk that you could actually close at nighttime, for instance, that would be a form of barrier, just like the sort of quasi joke from Katie that they can hit the sign. But would that be something that could maybe be a facilitated action, maybe to make sure there are no permanent issues if that's a chosen solution or a possible solution? Because I'm thinking of barriers like that used on government installations that are steel rolling gates that would at least mitigate damage, if nothing else, I guess.
Well, I will say that the issue of gates across driveways has come up many times at the planning board level, and that is not something that the city has been willing to entertain. The planning board in general feels that it is not appropriate to have for residential homes. There is a fence ordinance or a zoning ordinance that contains fence provisions. It doesn't allow more than a 3-foot high fence in the front setback. So that would at least limit the height. And in terms of the placement, and then we've had several people go to the planning board and try to get approval for a gate across an entrance drive, and no one has received approval for that in at least the 18 years I've been here. So it's generally not met favorably.
Just out of curiosity, he comments in his letter that the light timing, you know, sort of the way the timing of the light has changed over time, that it was a flashing red and now it's a time signal. Was there a reason for that change, or a reason that it can't go back to the other way? Did we look into that? I don't know. I'm assuming it was changed for a reason, so I don't want to make any assumptions, but.
So I did look into that, and I reached out to the road commission who went back as far as they can in their records, which was all the way back to 2008, and they have no record of that light ever being a flashing light. To be honest, I mean, I've been here for 20-something years, and I don't recall it ever being a flashing red light. The light at Brown and Chester used to have a flashing red light, and that light doesn't even exist anymore. But I do not personally recall of a time that did, and the road commission had no record of it.
Is there a reason why that couldn't be a consideration? Is the traffic volume too high in the after 9 o'clock to allow a flashing red?
That goes back to the analysis that we provided, where we evaluated whether we could put a flashing there. The criteria for the volumes does meet between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. However, there's a sight distance limitation there that would not allow the intersection to operate safely under stop control conditions at night.
Is there a secondary light that could be put further down on Brown itself? I've seen them where we have them in like school areas where they start a warning flash when speed limits change and schools coming out, that it's not actually at the intersection, it's preceding a location by 100 or 200 yards or something, so it's like a warning. Is there any option like that that could potentially go in as a flash?
We did look at that. That was our option number 3 in our study, and this intersection warning sign, which could be added with a beacon. The concern with adding a beacon at that location is the proximity to the residential homes that would be adjacent to that, and it would be extremely bright for those residents. So there was some concern about that for those residents. In addition, there was the other sign with the advanced intersection lane control that seemed to fit a bit more with what this intersection needed than the advanced intersection warning sign. So that was what it was going to be, either or, because there wasn't enough room for both signs. So that's what we recommended, the advanced lane control in lieu of the intersection warning sign. Because you can see the traffic signal really quite far in advance, especially at night. It's with the 12-inch signal lights. I mean, like 12 inches is quite large. So you can see them from quite a distance.
I have a question about the criteria, a chance to get educated on this. So when I looked at the picture, I think it's page 15 in the packet. And the typical speeds involved when it talks about obstructed view. Because when I look at that picture, I can see back a whole city block, right, all the way to Townsend. And I know there the speed limit is 25. That, to me, being that the cars are going slowly, that seems like a lot of time. I haven't calculated out as how much time that is, but that doesn't seem to me like that's a real obstructed view. If you're going 50 or 60 miles an hour, I'd feel differently. You know what I'm saying? Is that considered at all in the criteria?
Yeah, so that sight distance criteria is outlined by AASHTO, which is what we use to determine the sight distance. And this was the sight distance for the design speed of 30 miles an hour. So posted speed limit is 25. Design speed is 5 miles an hour higher than the posted speed limit. So we're at 30 miles an hour. In this case, I believe it was 330 feet off the center line. So that obstruction that's shown there is actually a wall that's right there.
Yep.
On the corner. So if you're sitting there at the stop bar, you won't be able to see through the wall so you have to have a clear vision from that point, and that red area that's marked out is the obstruction in the clear vision triangle.
Oh, so that triangle isn't really representative of the vision.
That's the vision triangle that needs to be clear. So to have an adequate sight distance, that particular triangle needs to be clear of obstructions.
I understand. Okay, I misunderstood the diagram. Sorry. Gotcha.
So I understand what Andrew was saying about signs becoming part of the background noise of driving. That being said, the big yellow sign is more than a sign. It's something that grabs your attention and is very reflective. So I think that that might be, given that we can't move to a blinking red light, and for the reason of this, if someone were to pull up on Brown looking to turn in Southfield, they won't be able to see whether someone's coming or not. Then I think that's a reasonable step to take. And I mean, I don't know if anyone's going to be paying attention to the turn only signs, but it doesn't hurt anything. So I think the recommendation is reasonable.
I agree.
Options 1 and 2, to add both of them. It's 2 signs. There's the option 1 showing the advanced intersection, and then the large reflective double arrow kind of as the backup.
So does that sound, it sounds like people are, I mean, I don't know whether there's a better option other than the suggested motion.
Yeah, I guess it seems to me like the better option would be the flashing beacon after 10 if the sight distance allowed for it. But since we don't have that option, I agree with Andrew that yes, sometimes these things do become sort of background, but I mean, I think we owe it to this property owner.
Absolutely.
And pedestrians who might be walking there. I mean, luckily it sounds like it's only been his garage that's been affected, but what if it was a person walking on the sidewalk or something? So I guess we owe it to him and to the community to put something there in an attempt to mitigate any further incidents. Because the data we have are people who are drunk or are having medical issues, but who knows who it will be in the future. So, yeah, so I think given the circumstances, I would agree.
Can I ask one quick question? It was mentioned that driveway consolidation was considered, although I didn't catch if there was any discussion about the driveway width, because this driveway appears to be about 20 feet wide, but the neighboring residential driveways are only about 10 feet wide. So I don't know if there's, if it could be a possibility to narrow that driveway, and maybe it would look less like a through street to oncoming drivers.
The homeowner had mentioned that he had attempted to make numerous changes to his property. I don't know, Commander Gruy, did you discuss any of that with him? Did he detail for you what things he had already tried?
No, the only thing he did mention was he did ask about the gate, as Mr. Haig has brought up. I told him that's a little bit outside of my realm or the multimodal's realm, but that would be more of the planning board stuff if you want to follow up on doing something like that. But that we would definitely review what traffic things we can do to bring awareness. So I'm not aware of any other changes that he's made or reviewed.
If I may suggest, changing his driveway width, I think that's actually a good recommendation. It's something to think about, but I don't think it's anything we can force on him. It's on his private property and that would be up to him. So perhaps we just minute that I think that would be a good suggestion, because it would draw a distinction between a driveway and the street continuing. Also, I think that sign that shows it's a T intersection is always very helpful to people. Unfortunately, even if they're not paying that much attention, they see that and hopefully it'll deflect them to turn. But so I think if you're all in favor of the motion and somebody makes that motion, you might want to add that the property owner consider narrowing the driveway, whether they want to or not. It's not something we could mandate on them.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
I'm still kind of favoring what Joe said about the reflectivity of that large sign, of having 2 signs, not just having one or another. But it does strike me that we could combine 2 options and the recommendation for the driveway, which is actually a really interesting idea. Because I think the combination at that point will provide quite a lot of visual change. Is that something that would be an acceptable modification as a motion?
Well, I think that's included in the motion as it is, that the two separate signs. So the suggested motion is to install, well, I mean, both the R3-8 sign and a two-directional large arrow sign W1-7. So I think that includes the sign that has the two lane turns, and that's the R3-8, and then the two-directional large arrow sign is the W1-7.
Okay.
So, and I mean, then we could modify it further to make the recommendation to the homeowner.
I misread it, so thank you for correcting that. I was reading either or, not combined. Sorry.
I would make a motion to approve the suggested action. You want me to read it? I am happy to.
Sure.
Okay. So we recommend that we install advanced intersection lane control signage R3-8 and a two-directional large arrow sign W1-7 at the recommended locations in the report provided by F&V. We would also encourage the homeowner to look at possibilities of narrowing his driveway width to make a distinction as a through street.
Second that motion. Oh.
Doug, who do you want to have the second?
Let Andrew second it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Katie Schaefer?
Aye.
Andrew Haig?
Yes.
Tom Peard? Tom Peard?
Frozen.
Okay. Doug White?
Aye.
Joe Zane?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Motion passes. The next agenda item is bicycle signage.
Yes, and if you recall, we talked about bicycle signage at the last meeting in September. At that time, we introduced the new signs, the R411 signs, the ones that were in the memo that bicycles may use full lane. We had received a letter stating that there had been some frustration on the part of cyclists who drivers were not giving them space and realizing that they had the right to share the lane on a road. So at that meeting, we did go ahead and approve the addition of some bicycles may use full lane signs. Almost immediately after that meeting, we got another letter that indicated there were also concerns in another area, which is would be East Maple and South Eaton and North Eaton. So where you have that offset intersection down by the Big Rock and then by Whole Foods going up. So were some concerns there. Obviously, it is a tricky intersection. It's difficult to begin with. So Ms. Kroll did do a report on that and also looked at both other options, not only just the sign, but also made some recommendations with regards to sharrows to make it clear what could happen in those areas. And Julie, I'll turn it over to you if you want to provide any additional information. Essentially, it just the recommendation is to provide enhancements in terms of signage and sharrows on both those intersections to make sure it's clear where bicycles have the right to be. Did you want to add anything, Julie?
Just so we just kind of looked at this and did just like a quick audit of this location to see what additional signage and pavement markings may be helpful in this location, knowing that it is a bit tricky for bicyclists to transition between North Eaton and South Eaton through this intersection. So that's where we had looked at potentially putting in additional R4-11s, and that during this review, we also identified a few locations where additional sharrows might be helpful. And I can certainly answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or discussions from the board? No. If not, there's a motion that's been provided, a two-part motion, the signage and the sharrows. If someone would like to make that motion.
I would make a motion to approve the suggested action to recommend approval of the installation of 4 new R411 signs to be installed along Eaton at the following locations. On South Eden, south of Maple Road on the northbound side, add a new signpost. On South Eden, south of Maple on the southbound side, mount on an existing light post. On North Eden, north of Maple Road on the northbound side, add a new signpost. And on North Eden, north of Maple Road on the southbound sign, which would include removing the existing W11 and W16 signs and replacing with an R411 on the existing post. And to recommend approval of the addition of sharrows to be installed on North Eden, north of Maple Road on both the north and southbound lanes.
Before we do a roll call, just, I don't see any hands up, but I want to make sure we at least give the public the option to raise their hand if they have any comments. I don't see any.
We would also need a second for the motion, so.
Thank you, Katie. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second it. Tom?
Tom seconds.
Are we still waiting for public or should I do the roll call?
Do not see any members of the public raising their hand.
Okay. Katie Schaefer?
Aye.
Tom Peard?
Aye.
Andrew Haig?
Yes.
Doug White?
Aye.
Joe Zane?
Aye.
Great.
Okay, motion carries. I think the last agenda item is, what was the last one here?
On-street parking on Commerce.
Yep, no parking signs on Commerce.
So I am going to recuse myself from this portion of the meeting for any discussion, as I do have a conflict. So I guess that means.
Okay, thank you. We will put you in the waiting room. Did you want to come back on at the end for any discussion after this item?
Sure.
Okay, we put her in the waiting room.
Okay, well, good evening again. We were contacted by Ms. McGregor, who was representing the owner of 2295 East Lincoln, which is the Lincoln Commerce Center, regarding on-street parking on Commerce, which borders the east side of that property. Currently, that is a no parking area. The entire west side of Commerce. The entire west side of Commerce from Lincoln to Cole is currently no parking. That has been in existence since 1962. As far as the reason that was put there, unfortunately, my notes that I have from back then doesn't tell me, and I wasn't around then, so I don't know. It's been there for quite a while. The request is to allow for on-street parking in that area due to some potential businesses that may be filling that space that have to meet city requirements for available parking. It looks like they're going to be attempting to use the on-street parking to fulfill those requirements. Just a little bit of background, I did include in the memorandum here, but we have had a problem recently on Commerce Street, mostly the couple businesses that are on the corner of Cole and Commerce. We have two different automobile type shops there that tend to store vehicles in the roadway, up on the grass on city easement. And we've been after them for probably a few months now to get out of the 2-hour parking zone on Cole Street and stay off of the city easement. Anyways, we received several complaints about that. So in the recommendation, you may note that typically we do these parking changes by block. Usually we don't segment it within that block. However, I do have concerns about removing the no parking on the north side of Commerce closer to Cole, because I think it's only going to exacerbate the problem that we have there as far as cars that are waiting to be worked on, whether it's body damage or mechanical damage, will end up being stored in that road, and we'll be dealing with that battle in a little bit greater scale than we're already dealing with now. So this is a little bit different in other recommendations that we've had where we did segment it, and I don't see any reason that we can't remove and fulfill the request here from Ms. McGregor. And you can see the notes that are added in there. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Questions, discussions from the board?
Yeah, I do have a question. Has the fire department also looked at this for overall access for when that parking is? Because I'm just thinking, because Kenning's going to be used for a lot of Little League, and when they're playing, Lincoln's basically packed. tight with parking, and then this is about the only sufficiently wide area you can get fire and ambulance access down to the assisted living home, which I believe you have pretty regular runs to every week. Has that been assessed for fire access or an ambulance access to allow an easy in and out when Lincoln could be blocked? Because adding Little League and then Lincoln Yard's got a delivery going on, or the garbage trucks in there. Is there a problem?
So the fire department was not contacted. Let me first tell you that. However, I can tell you that the fire department typically uses Lincoln, obviously, to access those places. Lincoln is wider than Cole, and there's much less parking on Lincoln than there is on Cole when Cole's on both sides of the street. So typically their route would always be Lincoln, as well as your Bob Adams Towing and other places back there typically use Lincoln to Commerce to Cole to avoid Cole because that's a lot tighter of a street than Lincoln is. With that too, the request is not to change any of the current parking conditions on Lincoln. It's Commerce only. So as far as access to the senior center, the ball fields, stuff like that, that should not change from what it currently is.
I was just thinking backup access if Lincoln's kind of packed with vehicles or what have you. That was all, because it seemed as I gave a different pathway if it was available. That was all.
Correct. And just to note too, that is a 28-foot wide street there. And a lot of our resident streets, as per the policy there, is 26 feet wide with parking on both sides. So this is actually 2 feet wider than a lot of our residential streets that they access now.
Okay, thanks. Another question, if I may. It's not police related. What's the status of the 2006 variance where it says that this property already has a variance on it for, what was it, 32 vehicle parking spaces? Because it's now changed use at least twice now since 2006. Is that variance still valid, or does that need to be reapplied for in its entirety? Because I thought that was use dependent and not grandfathered in forever.
It is, you're correct, it is use dependent. The variance is still in place, but because they've switched use and they're proposing to switch to a medical office use, it does change the parking requirements. And that's kind of what has led the applicant here tonight, because with that variance request, one of the first things that the BZA will ask is, have you exhausted all your options? Can you get some parking added on the street? Can you park along the street? Can you share parking with your neighbors? This kind of thing, before they determine whether to give a variance, and if so, for how many spaces. So yes, they do have to go back to the Board of Zoning Appeals if they do not meet their parking, which if my memory serves correctly, they will not. This will assist them in lowering the number that they will need to get for a variance for not meeting the parking.
When does it go to zoning and planning? Because MX isn't zoned for a medical office.
Yeah, a medical office is allowed in that site. It is. MX is the broadest category of zoning that you can get in the city and allows for a wide variety of office use. Well, all uses really, frankly.
Okay.
Gail, I'm not sure, Ms. McGregor, if you can comment, have you applied for a variance yet? Because I know Mr. Haig asked when it would go to the BZA, and that I do not know the answers to.
No, there has not been an application made yet to the BZA, but that is, you are correct, Jana, and that is something that will be done in this matter. So that is step 2 there.
How old's the building? Is the parking restriction?
How old is the building? That's a good question. I'm going to go ahead and guess maybe 50s. And of course, when it was built, it might even be before that. I mean, I don't have a
okay.
answer, but of course it was built as a warehouse type of building, and as was that entire area, industrial and warehouse, and the parking requirements are significantly less, even though the building is very large.
Are there any objections to doing it? Are there any reasons why we shouldn't add this parking? It seems like it doesn't hurt anybody, and it seems like it's a positive change.
I would just tell you that we did have a petition circulated to the 4 properties that front on Commerce Street. And 3 of the properties, including the owner of this property, signed the petition. The one property owner that did not want to sign, did not sign because they objected. They just didn't want to put their signature on something that was getting submitted to the city. And that was the Dogtopia property that's at the corner of Lincoln and Cole Street and Commerce. And they have a pretty sizable on-site parking lot next to their building. So they wouldn't be affected by this addition of these parking spots down at the southern end of the street. But yeah, we circulated the petition. The owner circulated the petition amongst the property owners fronting, and there was no objection.
Okay, thank you.
So that's really helpful, right? Those are the people that work there and are there every day saying it's no big deal. So, I mean, previously someone said there's no objection. I can't think of one.
Okay, so I'm willing to make a motion at this point. Does anyone have anything else to say? Okay, I'm going to make a motion to remove the no parking signs on the west side of Commerce from Lincoln North to the south side of the second driveway and replace them with 2-hour parking signage.
I'll second that.
Andrew seconds.
You should take it to the public.
Any public comment?
I see no raised hands.
Okay, Joe Zhang,
Aye.
Drew Haig.
Was that me? You broke up. I'm sorry.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yes.
Tom Beard.
Aye.
Doug White.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Is there any, we'll open up to the public. Are there any items, or the board members, are there any items that are not on the agenda that would like to be discussed?
To any members of the public that are present that would like to speak, if you do click the raise hand button, it will let us know that you have a comment you would like to make. Okay, I don't see any.
No.
See the email in the package from Mr. Lurie, though. If he's able to join or not, I don't know. But I don't know if we want to just talk through what he's emailed in there at all.
Well, oh, he does have his hand up.
There is a David, and I'm assuming that's Mr. Lurie.
All right, we will try to bring him in.
Hello.
Mr. Lurie, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't raise hand button. Can you hear me?
It's
Yes.
broken.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dave Lurie from 755 Lakeview. Now that the paving of Lakeview Avenue is going forward, it's a good time to look at fixing the unsafe sidewalk between Lakeside and Lakeview along the south side of Oak Boulevard. Currently, there's a 6-inch crumbling asphalt curb separating cars that generally exceed the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, coming within very close proximity to pedestrians. On Sunday, September 20th, in just 1 hour stretch, I counted 19 pedestrians using this walkway, along with 10 bicyclists that use Oak Boulevard with no bike lane. People of all ages are using this hazardous pathway. Many years ago, when my kids were in elementary school, there was a steel guardrail that protected pedestrians. If I had all of your email addresses, I could have sent you photos. Using the sidewalk on the north side of Oak is not advisable since it dead ends at the Greenwood Cemetery with no crosswalk. In fact, despite the very substantial pedestrian traffic at the corner of Lakeside and Oak, there's no crosswalk there either. In addition, for cars turning from Lakeview onto Oak, especially those people driving sedans, it's very difficult to see cars coming up the hill from eastbound Oak. With the reconstruction of Lakeview, it'd be a great time to try to make this corner safer. The turn is made even more hazardous because of the speed of cars on Oak. While some people do observe the speed limit, there is a 1 full mile stretch from Woodward to Chesterfield with no stop sign and no light. And it's on a newly paved road. Cars are going too fast. While Commander Gruey has been wonderfully responsive to us to increase patrols, it's a temporary measure. Other half-mile roads like Beverly and Normandy have many stop signs to keep traffic under control, but there's got to be more innovative ways that have been used in neighboring communities, especially for bike lanes and barriers for pedestrian safety. With the improvement, paving of Lakeview, and possibly the repaving of Oak between Lakeside and Woodward, it's a great opportunity to do something positive for residents, pedestrians, bike riders, court and school, children, and children walking to Holy Name. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And just so the board knows, there are several staff members that are meeting with Mr. Lurie tomorrow to discuss some of these issues in a little more detail and come up with some potential solutions, I guess.
Forgive my ignorance, but what is the current status of the repaving of Lakeview?
It's basically the sewers have gone in, and the water main has gone in. A lot of all the sewers have been connected. I think most of the water has been connected. It's a mud pit right now. They're going to start paving, I think, middle of this month, maybe the end of this month. That's my guess. I don't know if
yeah, the city engineer is on. Austin, if you wanted to respond.
Absolutely, I can give everybody an update. Essentially, all the underground utilities are done. The water and sewer connections, the new water, the new sanitary. They were going to start grading the road today, but they had a mishap with the gas main. It was not properly abandoned, so our contractor hit it. It was marked. They went ahead and fixed that. They're going to start grading the road tomorrow, and it's scheduled to be done by the end of the month. Substantial completion, so the road will be paved by the end of the month.
I guess the reason I asked was because I thought there was going to be some consideration for multimodal improvements when we were resurfacing some of these roads. And I don't know if that was ever taken into consideration. I know that these roads being repaved it's been a long process. So the fact that it's happening is wonderful news for you, Mr. Lurie. But I do believe that there was discussion that we should be looking at multimodal improvements around these areas. So the adjacent sidewalk, I think, would be one of them. So I'm not particularly familiar with exactly what he's talking about, but it would be something interesting for us to look at as these roads are being improved, to look at the all of the different multimodal things that surround them, whether they be sidewalks or bike lanes or any number of things, just to make sure that we are improving the road to its fullest capacity. So
no, absolutely. But his complaints are basically on Oak Street, not the roads that we are improving.
It starts at Lakeview.
Right. So when we do Oak Street, we will certainly bring that to the multimodal board to look at these various improvements. But Lakeview, there was just a reconstruction of an unimproved street to an improved street, 2 blocks long. And like I said, his concerns are on Oak Street.
You just hinted at a possible answer to the first question I had is you did Oak to, I think, Lake Park a few years ago. Is there a plan for the area east of Lake Park going up and past the cemetery and all the way to Old Woodward?
Yes, it is on our radar, but it's several years out.
Okay.
It has not even been budgeted for yet.
I see.
Is there a drafted plan as to what it would look like? Because this is part of my bike meandering route in the summer with the kids, where we just ride all over the place. And so I've actually been up and down here, and it's sort of an odd intersection of there's the new piece, and then it stops. Yep. And the road narrows significantly because there's no bike lanes, and the sidewalk on the opposite side of Lake, I'm looking at it on Google Earth right now, the sidewalk on the other side of Lakeside just stops nowhere. It stops at a fence right next to the cemetery. And the only sidewalk that's available is one Mr. Leary's actually been talking about, which is just a curb next to the road. It's pretty iffy, actually, and especially that corner, if it's eroding, it's just getting clipped by traffic all the time.
We have looked at it staff-wise and our consultants, and we have a plan that we were going to share with Mr. Leary tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion?
I just believe Mr. Palevsky, are you still there? And did you wish to address the board regarding training opportunities? I believe he wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about some training he might do or we might do at the next meeting.
Yeah, so Brad, Julie, and I have been working on a survey to gauge your interest in different types of multimodal treatments having to do with pedestrian crossings, bicycle facilities, traffic calming, and transit enhancements. And we were hoping to send that out to the board members within the next week or so. And then with your responses, we can start to craft a training session for the board based on the different types of treatments that you're all most interested in. So I think that's all I have to share at this point.
And if you recall, at a previous meeting, one of the board members asked if we're open to new and best practices. Of course, yes, we are. And we did do several training sessions with the previous board members, but we've had quite a turnaround or turnover in terms of board members. So a lot of you are newer. So we do think it would be helpful to do another training session. So if you do get the survey in your email over the next week, maybe you can respond with your top choices for what you'd like to see. And we'll schedule something on the November meeting, which would be on November the 5th. We usually tend to save the training sessions for when we have a lighter agenda. So we, if we have 5 items on that night, we won't do the training that night. But if we have a lighter agenda, that's the perfect time to do it. So.
Great. I think that's a great idea.
This is fantastic. So I want to pre-thank you.
Okay. Any other items? Any other discussion? Questions? Okay, I believe our next meeting is going to be Thursday, November 5th. And without any further discussion or questions, we can adjourn here at 6:58 p.m.
Thank you. Night all.
Good job.
Yep. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great month.
Have a good night.
Night.